Hey guys, it's Cashew. So, I saw this 5,000 word essay that Dantes sent to a writer. Now, for context, I think everyone knows, but if you don't, Dantes is a multi-time challenger Hecarim one trick. He's very good at Hecarim. He's very good at soloq. He's a very popular streamer. He's been at this rank and this popularity for multiple years, and he definitely understands his champion, and he understands how good he is at the game. I read this essay, and I don't agree with a whole lot of it. I'm going to briefly talk about it. I'm going to show some examples of why I think it is inaccurate, and then I want to talk briefly about what actually could be done. The first thing I want to talk about is his first take. So I'm going to go through these bits one at a time. I'll try to sum these up. I'm not going to sit here and read them to you. What he says during these first three paragraphs is that League's at an all-time low, streaming's at an all-time low, player base is at an all-time low. Content creators leave, and people are less interested in watching people on stream. All of these are true. These are objectively true statements. That's it. Now I want to talk about why, because he wants to talk about why, and he has an answer that I don't agree with. So, his first answer is the game hasn't changed substantially in the last 2 years, and people are starting to get extremely tired. CC, tankiness, and shielding wins games post-durability. He doesn't think that anything else is true. With the introduction of the durability patch, the nerfing of items, barrier, no tenacity, every game feels the same because number checks for shielding and tankiness is very powerful, and CC is the only way to kill people now that tenacity is worse and damage is worse. It feels terrible to play. That's why streamers don't play as much, and skill expression is gone. So, I disagree with this take, not because I think that the durability patch has made tankiness, better. I think that's true. I think durability has made tankiness better. I think that CC, tankiness, and shielding wins games. But there's a logical fallacy at play here, I think. CC, tankiness, and shielding has been winning games in League of Legends for the last 16 years. It will continue to win games. You win this game by blowing up your opponent's Nexus. The best champion at doing that is typically an attack damage hypercarry from range. The best champions at protecting that can shield themselves and other champions, can crowd control, and can be tanky frontliners for those champions. This is objectively true for the majority of League's lifespan. If you ever watch pro games, most games have a DPS carry. If it's not the ADC, you're seeing an Azir mid, you're seeing some crazy strong mage, you're seeing a Gwen in the top lane or a Kayle in the top lane. They are going to try to win the game by killing objectives and forcing you to dive into their comp. So, is this bad? I don't think so, but that's a personal take. Other people want to play explosive characters. I'm actually going to open a tab here and show you guys something that I think is pretty relevant, which is UGG play rates. So, real quick, pick rates. Obviously, because ADC is a smaller category, you'll often see people play the same ADCs. Ezreal, Jinx, Kai'Sa are almost always at the very top of the tier list, or at least in terms of pick rate. We see Lulu here. So, Lulu's the first non-damage champion here. Lee Sin is the first non-damage champion outside of ADC. Kate, Jhin, Viego, right? Karma's not really a damage champion. Darius. Thresh isn't a damage champion, but he's very high play potential. Ashe is kind of utility. Nami's an enchanter. We're seeing a pattern here, though. There's a lot of characters that want to carry. If we go down even further, Sylas, Ahri, Aatrox, Victor, Yasuo, Garen, Varus, Tristana, and Zed, Misfortune, and Vi. So top 25... 18 of those champions are champions that either want to deal a lot of damage or want to deal the damage. They are the primary carry. People want to do this, right? So he's right about that. But if you look at UGG's tier list right here, a lot of these champions are listed in S tier, or S+, or A. Yes, a lot of the highest play rate champs are considered bad, in terms of a mixture of win rate and whatever UGG uses for their tier list decisions. Ezreal, Kai'Sa, Caitlyn, and Jhin are 4 of the weakest rated ADCs at D tier, which is UGG's lowest. But they see fine win rates. They have crazy play rates, which implies that if you have a very high play rate and a high win rate, you're probably not a bad champion. Ezreal's incredibly skill expressive. To be over a 48% win rate is pretty good for him. So, what gives with the rest of this take? Well, he says CC, tankiness, and shielding wins games, and that players don't like it. I've shown you that players don't like it. Yeah, most of these characters are glass cannon explosion characters, and the ones that aren't are still divers. Does CC, tankiness, and shielding win games? Well, first, how prevalent is shielding? Well, the two highest play rate supports right here, Lulu and Karma, are primarily shielders when they're enchanters. I hit a button, that's my bad. What about the non-enchanter supports? Well, Fresh shields, right? Victor shields himself, Yasuo shields himself, Garen is a shield. Hold on, there's a lot of these. There are, according to the wiki, 57 items, or 57 pages, sorry. I know it says items, that confused me. 57 champions here that shield themselves or another character. Shields are pretty likely to be a big part of the meta if almost over a third of all champions can do it. And then on top of that, there are a couple items, Locket and Eclipse, which are both good items, provide shields. Barrier, which is very good on ADC, provides a shield. So shields are going to be everywhere. You just have to deal with them. What about the meta? Okay, let's look. So let's start with what I think is the best representation of the characters that are the best at the current time, which is the world's meta. Not the world's meta, sorry. The pro scene. We are looking at, you can see this here, every split from season 15. This is every split, every tournament. Unless I've done something very wrong, this should be all leagues as well. So, up on this list, we see Skarner has the highest prio score. He has a shield. Right under that, Callista. She does buy shield bow, and she's an ADC, but she doesn't have a shield in her kit. Cassante has a shield, but Varus and Corki don't. Ambessa has one, Vi has one, Brel has one, Rumble has one. Jace doesn't, Ezreal doesn't, Maokai doesn't, Aurora doesn't. So, maybe shields are slightly better, but nothing about this list suggests that shields are broken. We don't see a Lulu at the top of this priority. We don't see a Karma at the top of this priority list, right? We don't see a Janna. Shields are just part of these characters' kits. They're not really their identity. Let's go to the next year. Rumble has a shield, but Ashe doesn't. Nautilus does, but Varus doesn't, right? There's Tristana, doesn't have a shield. There's Maokai, doesn't have a shield. Senna doesn't have a shield, though she does take Aerie very often and Barrier sometimes, right? A bunch of ADCs, but again, much like the list of high play rate champions that we were talking about, ADCs have a lower pool and by extension tend to have a higher pick rate because there's a smaller number to select from. Nothing about this list particularly suggests shields are broken. What about the Season 13 list? Maokai doesn't have a shield. He is the highest presence. I believe that's what Prio score is very close to presence. Champion. Sejuani doesn't have a shield. Vi does. Jace doesn't. Xayah doesn't. Cassante does. Jax doesn't. Rakan does. Nautilus does. Renekton doesn't. So, what about Season 12? Same thing. You can look at this list if you want. I'm just going to show it real quick. So, it looks like shielding doesn't win the game on its own, just by World's picks. Well, what about soloq? I've actually also pulled up the World's Patch Prior 3 infographics, and these are from League of Graphs. Now, I've pulled these stats from a couple different places, partially because I do trust a majority of these sites to be similar, partially because I don't want to look like I'm biased towards using one particular site. So we can see some very good characters from a mixture of pick rate, ban rate, win rate, all that stuff, right? Across 3 Worlds patches. I picked Worlds patches because they tend to be more stable. There weren't large meta changes, and as such, they tend to be relatively solved, right? So whatever is good is probably good on that patch. Whatever's played is probably played on that patch. I picked them across 3 different years. You can see 12.18, 13.19, and 14.18, which are the Worlds patches for each of these respective years. There are champions with shields, but of the ADCs, or of the, 5 most popular champions, all of them are bot laners, only 2 have a shield, right? The highest win rate champion doesn't have a shield, neither does the second. The third takes Aerie, but they don't. The fourth doesn't. The fifth has a magic damage shield. Okay. What about Season 13? Same thing. Season 12? Same thing. Shields just show up because they're everywhere in League of Legends. What about current patch right now? Is this a recency bias thing? Well, here's the top 5 North American players right now and the champions that they play. So we've got 2... Are these 2 players? Is this the same guy on 2 accounts? Aren't these both Viper? These both feel like Viper. Okay. Well, I'm going to assume these are both Viper because they have essentially the same pool. I didn't actually look too closely at the names or the pools. I just pulled them up. But yeah, so this is a player. We see Riven, Mbessa, Jace, Kaisa, Ryze, Senna. Vayne. 3 of those champs have a shield. What about Pentalus? Well, he's a new one trick. There's Skarner, Maokai, Wukong, Pantheon, Sion, and Mumu. I think 2 of those champs have a shield. You could count Pantheon if you wanted to. What about Tosi Alex, rank 2? Mbessa has a shield. Yone has a shield. Victor has a shield. Orianna has a shield. Aurora, Jace, and Sylas don't. Jace buys Eclipse. What about Armeo? Well, Lee Sin buys Eclipse, has a shield. Volibear has a shield. Elise doesn't. Vi does. Gwen doesn't. Cassiopeia doesn't, though she often buys Archangels. Wukong doesn't, though he can buy Eclipse if he wants to. I don't think it's very good. So, the top 5 players don't do it. The solo queue meta on stable patches of the past 3 years don't do it. And the pro play meta from the last 4 years, 3.5, doesn't do it. So, his claim that CC shielding comps, these incredibly glass cannon, idiot, unga bunga tanks win games, seems to be false when you look at the stats. I didn't talk too much about tankiness, but again, we can go look. Actually, yeah, let's go look. Alright, how many of these champs are really tanky? So Skarner, Cassante are the 2 best tanks on this current year's patch on average. Rel is very tanky. Vi isn't, not normally. Mbessa definitely isn't. Corki's not. Kallista's not. Varus isn't. Rumble, yeah, he's a bruiser. Jace tends to be built pretty high damage, though I actually do know that Fimbulwinter Jace was the meta for a while. Ezreal can build tank items. Maokai's a tank. Aurora's a brawler. Poppy's definitely a tank. At least, I believe in this role, she's being played as a full tank support. Zyra's not. Leona is. Victor isn't. Azir isn't. This is just a lot of the best frontliners and divers. There's bruisers, there's tanks, there's carries. Next year. Well, Rumble's the most played champion. Do we need to keep looking at this? Yeah, we can. Here's Ashe, here's Varus, here's Kalista, here's Tristana, here's Vi, here's Senna, here's Corki, here's Orianna, Azir, Lucian. What about the next one? Well, yeah, tanks are actually really good this season. You see Maokai and Sejuani as the 2 most popular. But, you know, Vi, Jace, Xayah, Jax. Jax gets pretty tanky. Yeah, Renekton gets pretty tanky. Varus, LeBlanc, Zeri, Ashe, Annie, Tristana, Nico, Lucian. Guys, this isn't true. Tanking doesn't win games. What does win games is the fact that almost all of these characters have the power budget when they are good to buy a defensive item. Ezreal can often buy some combination of like a Zhonya's, an Iceborne Gauntlet, a Frozen Heart, you know, something like that, depending on the meta. Zeri likes Shield Bow, Kalista likes Shield Bow, Jinx can buy GA because she does enough damage. Aphelios has bought Death Stance in prior patches, right? He likes Lifesteal. A lot of the bruisers can and are really happy to buy Sundered Sky, Zhonya's GA, defensive items, right? But buying glass cannon items isn't necessarily, there's no indication in the game that you should buy 5 damage items and be rewarded for it. Nothing about these characters explicitly suggests I should buy 5 pure damage items. In fact, that's typically a bad idea. You'll see a lot of mages in pro play buy Merc Treads. You'll see a lot of mages in pro play take Exhaust to stop dives. ADCs take a defensive summoner. The goal is to win the game, not to win the game by doing your strategy. Not in pro play. What about these champs? Well, the most popular characters right here are all backline glass cannons. Amumu is built with his first item Leandries. One of Yorick's best builds is Lethality. Nami's an Enchanter. Kog'Maw is a damage dealer. Shaco's an Assassin. Morgana's a squishy backliner. Zed's an Assassin. Guys. Alright, next patch. Next patch. I'm not going to explain these to you. You know. Alright, what about Lee Sin, Elise, Gwen, Vi? That's not a super tanky pool. Mbessa, Jace, Yone, Aurora? No, not a super tanky pool. This guy plays tanks. Nunu, Skarner, Maokai? Absolutely he plays tanks. And then Viper, Riven, Vayne, Mbessa, Jace, these are also brawlers. The best characters are played with a lot of skill expression. We see Mbessa as the top champion. We see Nunu as the top champion. Lee Sin as the top champion here. There's an Elise high up. There's a Riven, a Vayne, and Mbessa right at the top of Viper's played. On this account, it's the same thing. Like, these characters all have an insane amount of skill expression, which means that if you're one of the best players, you can use it better than other players. That's why these people are at the top. It's not because they're picking tanks and beating you by buying a defensive item. Or 5. Finally, I want to look at the current patch win rates for Emerald Plus, just in case you're saying, well, these are biased towards the best players. Here's Emerald Plus. Nobody calls Emerald 4 Plus high elo. The majority of games from Emerald Plus are Emerald. I want to say Emerald is 12 to 13% of the player base, and Diamond is 2. So most of these games are coming from people Emerald 4 to 2. Quinn's a carry. Darius is a brawler. Yasuo is a brawler diver. You know, he builds a lot of damage. Cassiopeia does build tank stats, but is a mage. Anivia can build tank stats, but is a mage. Swain can build tank stats, but is a mage. Warwick's a bruiser. Urgot's a bruiser. Talia, Annie, Kog'Maw. You have to get all the way down here to find the first champion that is a defensive champion. A little farther down, you see Cho'Gath, who actually buys a lot of AP items in solo queue, and Seraphine, who also can buy AP items, though typically she's built very defensively. Most of the best win rate characters in Emerald Plus are buying offensive items. Alright, let's go to Master Plus. Don't tell me Fiddlesticks is a defensive character, guys. Yeah, Kayle has an ult that keeps herself safe, and yeah, she doesn't have a shield, she has an invulnerability. Zillion's safe. Darius has to dive, Swain has to dive, Talia's defensive, Yasuo has to dive, Anivia's defensive. This is just a standard pool. This is a mixture of offensive and defensive champions. And finally, okay, so before I get to the end of my little rant here, to say that this is wrong, because I'm really talking about one specific thing here. Let's talk about the last bit of this. I'm going to go over the potential fixes thing because I have, like I've said, I don't believe this is a problem that inherently needs to be fixed because it was true when the game was better. It also, if my stats are correct, his take is pretty inaccurate because CC tankiness and shielding isn't what wins games. And by extension, his argument for fixes doesn't make sense because he doesn't properly understand the issue at hand. What he does want to say, the fix is to rework Shojin to an 80 version of Leanderies that allows 80 fighters to match extended fight strength or gut Leanderies. What needs to happen is any number of specific things, and then he lists a number of changes. Switch Bloodline back to Tenacity, nerf Leanderies, buff Sterak's, reintroduce anti-shield for mages, nerf Barrier substantially, change Shojin to make it more of an 80 Leanderies item. A lot of these are item changes. But they're item changes that favor the specific type of way that Mr. Dantes likes to play. Dantes plays Hecarim. He plays high damage carry Hecarim. Hecarim is, by all accounts, not very good right now. I would say that Hecarim will never have a bottom win rate because Hecarim players that are very good will carry with him no matter what in lower ranks. But actually, I don't know. But if I go look at the top tier of win rates, here, let's go to the bottom, scroll a bit so I can find him, and then Control F Hecarim. Masters Plus. Where is this guy? He's got to be really low, right? Really far down. He's got to have a really bad win rate. Why does he have a 51% win rate? Why is he an S tier in Masters Plus? What about Challenger? Is his win rate the same? Actually, it's a little bit higher. It's 52%. So clearly Hecarim isn't unplayable by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, the champion seems fine and doesn't really need any nerfs or changes. Or buffs or changes. So what's going on here? So this is wrong. He has a lot of bias. It's incorrect to Hecarim's state in 3 separate ranks. It's incorrect to assume that these are problems that need changing because it's incorrect to assume that these are problems in the first place because they aren't indicated by stats. One more thing, you want to look at the items that win games? High popularity and high win rate? Well, Medjai's is at the top. Sure, a bunch of these other items give some defensive stats, but the highest popularity high win rate item is Deathcap. That's a pure damage item, right? And there aren't many pure damage items. There's a lot of tank items in here that have high win rates, but they also have very low purchase rates. GA has a sub 1% purchase rate and is a 60% win rate item, the highest non-snowball item's win rate in the entire game. Trailblaze is a full defensive item with a 0.5% win rate, despite apparently being really good. Same with Warmogs, same with Abyssal Mask. Sterak's and Death Stance have high win rates, but they're also items that divers buy when they want to dive. They give defensive stats because they allow divers to stay alive while they dive. They also counter specific mechanics. Sterak's gives Tenacity, which is currently at a premium. Death Stance allows you to survive extended damage, or allows you to survive burst damage, which is the opposite of the problem that Leanderies would give. Death Stance allows you to take extended fights, get a kill, and win them. Death Stance requires you to have high damage, kill targets that are squishy, and be playing against burst damage and AD damage. He is arguing that defensive AP comps are better. The items do not suggest that defensive AP comps are better. That's simply not what they suggest. Infinity Edge and LDR have very high buy rates and very high win rates. A lot of the defensive items here are tech items. We also see items like Shield Bow, Bloodthirster, and, again, Death Dance, Sterex, Merc Sim, GA. These are defensive items, but they're also offensive items. He has a lot of bias because of his role. He probably has a lot of bias because he might have been losing. I actually don't know. But I think that what he has said is objectively incorrect. Is this a problem? Well, if what he said is wrong, how can he be defining the problem properly? I don't think he is. So let's go back to the first thing that he's talking about. The game is in a state he's never seen before because League viewership, people playing, and people making content is at an all-time low. This is true. But is it a problem? League of Legends is a strategy game. Every time the game is won at the very top level, it's done because a team is able to find specific, very powerful, optimized strategies, take them to Worlds, and consistently win on them. They come in with a game plan. They probably have a similar game plan to the other top players at Worlds. Most of what wins the games is macro, the ability to decide fights by positioning correctly, objectives, and gold gain. It's the things that a strategy game requires you to do. Also, draft. I'm sorry, draft is a big deal. But these are all things that have won the game for 16 years. So why would people be experiencing burnout? Why would content creators be experiencing burnout? Is carrying getting worse? I don't know. I haven't analyzed explicitly the people who carry across massive individual years to see, is somebody at the same level falling off? I'm not good enough at, for example, Hecarim, to watch dantes play for 3 years and say, hey, he's playing at the same level and losing a lot more. This isn't fair. What I can say is the stats don't match this take at all. The perspective doesn't match this take at all because it's not equivalent to how League has been played over the last 3 years. And everything that exists right now in stats over the last 3 years is very similar to the theory that's existed in pro play for the entire duration of League's time in the game. You are expected to pick an AD carry, draft around the AD carry, peel it, have AP damage that allows you to deal with your opponent's teching to buy the AD carry, and then play for objectives and win the game. Great, that's 5 things. I don't know, less, more, whatever. I'm simplifying. I'm showing you stats that don't show the whole picture because I don't have time to. I'm not going to post a 10-hour breakdown of a couple statistics. If 5 different people with 5 different main roles wrote this post, they would have 5 different posts entirely. Mages would be complaining about completely different items. I personally find Sterex to be really frustrating, and I play a lot of mages and assassins mid lane. I also find Merc Treads to be frustrating, even though they've been nerfed. It just sucks to play against them sometimes. Top laners hate ranged top laners, but AD carries are really happy to have a tank top lane. Right? These perspectives all change, and it's important when you have a take like this to look at the perspective of everyone else in the game. dantes is looking at this perspective from a lethality Hecarim player who wants to play lethality Hecarim and win 80% of his games in Challenger. I'm sorry, dude. You're not a top 10 player. You aren't that good. You may be the best Western Hecarim. I actually am not educated enough to know if you are or not, but I would believe it. I don't know of anyone else. But you're not Viper. You're not Agarin. You're damn as hell. You're sure as hell not Faker or Dopa. If you want to win that much, get better at the game. That's it. See you later.